College football season is heating up. There are upsets all over the slate. We don't have a dominant number one team in the country. Is it 2007? So much of ahead of us in college football still. We're getting into the end of October. We've seen a lot of big games. We've got more coming on the slate this week. I'm going to pick them all at the end of the show. But anyway, welcome into Saturday Cadence. My name is Blake Biscardi. It's good to have you with us. I want to start by recapping real quickly the notable games from last week, and that would be Georgia going into Austin, defeating Texas 30-15. And then, of course, we had Tennessee beating Alabama in Neyland. Both of those notable games affecting the college football playoff race, the top 10 rankings, as well as the SEC race. So that's something to keep an eye on right now. Georgia now reinserting itself toward the top. Texas was one of those teams we thought was that dominant number one team in the country that would be unbeatable. That is not the case. So we're going to move on now. And in the SEC, that race, we told you it's heating up. It is wide open. There are a lot of teams in contention. We have 6, 7 teams in strong contention right now in the SEC. So that Southeastern Conference starting to turn up right now. We're going to start there with LSU, Texas A&M this week. Now, this game is going to be in College Station at night. LSU and Texas A&M have met 8 times as ranked opponents. LSU undefeated in those matchups. However, we know what College Station is like at night. Kyle Field gets rowdy. It gets raucous. So that is something to watch. Connor Wegman in this game, is this one that he can win by himself? That's where I want to focus to start this segment. Now, Connor Wegman, we've seen him play really well, and we've also seen him turn the ball over, and that's been a trend as of late. So something he's not going to be able to do in this game. Now, when you look at matchups, styles make fights here. Which team has to run the ball? Which team does not have to run the football? I think LSU is a team that does not have to, but they can. Garrett Nussmeier, he can beat you with his arm or his legs. LSU's been really hot. They lost in week 1 of the season. Now they've been really hot. They are undefeated in conference play. So is Texas A&M. So the winner of this game is going to be in the driver's seat in the SEC. Texas A&M, on the other hand, they're at home, and normally there's home field advantage. The crowd, it's worth some points. I do think Kyle Field is one of those places that is undoubtedly worth points. However, I don't think Connor Wegman can win the game by himself if LSU on defense takes that run away. I think the Aggies have to be able to run the football and play good defense in this game. Now, by no means is Texas A&M or LSU completely out of the SEC picture or the college football playoff race with a loss. However, with a win, that team is nearly cemented toward the top of that SEC race. And then again, for a college football playoff spot. Now, after this game, LSU has Alabama. Now, that game is at home in Baton Rouge for the Tigers. And then Texas A&M, they have Texas, a game also at home. So some similarities here. You're starting to see this. This is going to go a long way in terms of a college football playoff seed, and then potentially a spot in Atlanta for the SEC championship game. So outside of that, what else is going on in the SEC? We look at a team like Alabama, Texas. Are they both on upset alert? Now, both teams lost last weekend, so that would mean dropping back-to-back games. In Alabama's case, knocking them out of the college football playoff race. What's interesting here with Alabama, okay, they're playing Missouri this week. And, you're looking at this game. How do these two teams match up? Alabama and Missouri on third down is probably the most intriguing matchup. Missouri is a team that I not wrote off, but I have left them to the side. They've been very unimpressive so far this year. I picked them to win a couple of games. They've let me down in those spots. I do think there's talent with Brady Cook and Luther Burden on that offense. However, the news just before the show started, Luther Burden is going to play in this game and be the featured player on offense for Missouri because they will be without Brady Cook. So Brady Cook doubtful to start against Alabama. So that gives me pause in this game because I was leaning toward Missouri at least to cover in this matchup because I think on third down, Missouri has a top 10 defense. And then Alabama, they've been caught in a lot of third and mediums and third and longs this year. And it's not a place you want to be. And offensively, I think it's been really difficult for Alabama to get anything going in rhythm since the first half of the Georgia game. We've seen them struggle against South Carolina. Obviously, the loss to Vanderbilt, and then last week losing to Tennessee, they shut Tennessee out in the first half, but that wasn't enough. They were not able to muster up enough offense to win the football game. So that's something that you want to keep an eye on in that matchup is on third down, because with or without Brady Cook, the defense could keep Missouri in the game. And then all of a sudden they have to find 21, 24, 27 points. That would be stretching it without Cook. But could you win a game like that? We'll see. So that's something that you want to keep an eye on. Jalen Milroe, he needs a bounce back game in this matchup. I think this is really important for him. He definitely needs a game where this is the get right spot. You need to go in there. You need to be all business. You need to show that Heisman top end potential that you have, and then use Ryan Williams in the pass game. Jam Miller needs to get going in the run game. Alabama has really struggled to run the football in SEC play. That has to change this week against Missouri, and that starts up front with the offensive line. So those are some things to watch for in that game. Again, pick coming in the final segment. I want to go elsewhere, though, with this upset alert. Okay. Texas and Vanderbilt. This is a really tricky spot for Texas. Now, in Vanderbilt's case, what a better time to get two of the top SEC teams is after playing Georgia. Now, Alabama, they beat Georgia. They go in there thinking, all right, this could be a letdown spot, but it's against Vanderbilt. Should be okay. That was not the case at all. This is not the Vanderbilt from 5-10 years ago where it's just a doormat. You're going in there, you can pencil in the win. Diego Pavia, this team is for real, and they are contending and trying to make real noise in the SEC. Now, if they beat Texas, they are now ranked, but if they beat Texas, we're going to need to start having some real conversations about the Commodores. But Texas coming into this matchup, a physical game against Georgia, gut-wrenching loss, very sloppy. They turned the football over 4 times. Not the typical Texas team that we expected to see. They found themselves in an early hole, gave Georgia a lot of short fields, sloppy all around. So this is a spot where you think, okay, Georgia now is propelling in their season, but Texas, on the other hand, they've got to watch. They can't take on water from that loss to Georgia. So now this is that spot for Texas where they've got to come in and play fundamentally sound football. They know they have a real opponent staring across the other side of the sideline that's highly amped up. This is an anticipated matchup where they're ready to play. Vanderbilt not going to be a walk in the park. So just a spot to watch for Texas. I do have some pause in this matchup for the Longhorns, although I do think that they get it done. But another team on upset alert, Notre Dame. Notre Dame is playing Navy this week, and they have been dealing with some injuries. I know we've seen Benjamin Morrison, their top cover corner. He's missed some time. Notre Dame offensively has not been what we thought that they would be. Now, by no means did we think Notre Dame was going to have an all-world offense or be one of the best in the country, but Riley Leonard certainly performing under expectations there in South Bend. So this is a game to watch because Navy is one of the better offenses in the country. Now, they run that triple option attack. It's not easy to prepare for. Navy is also undefeated this year, as well as Army. Notre Dame having to play both. Both of them going to be bigger challenges than some of the games against maybe a Florida State or a USC that we thought would be marquee matchups that would shape the college football playoff race. Notre Dame's still going to have games that do that. They're just going to be against Army and Navy now, as those two teams fight for a group of 5 playoff spot, and then Notre Dame again for an at-large spot since they are an FBS independent. So that's a game for Notre Dame that I really am watching because I think upset potential is there. And I think it's real. And I think Navy could win the game outright. I don't even think Navy could cover. I actually think Navy can win this game outright. So something certainly to watch in South Bend for the Irish, because Marcus Freeman's bunch has to get this game right. What I want to do next is go to the Big Ten here, Illinois and Oregon. Now, this matchup is one that you're looking on paper at the preseason. That's an easy win for the Ducks. Illinois is not going to be that good. I know they have Brett Bielema. Defense is going to be sound, get some problems, but Illinois should not really be much of a test for Oregon. This is the spot I wonder if Oregon is in. Okay. They beat Ohio State at home 32-31. It was a thriller. It was a top 3 matchup, very physical game. Then they go on the road to Purdue in Ross-Ade Stadium. No one likes going on the road in Purdue, especially if you're in the Big Ten. That was like the hazing moment for Oregon in terms of scheduling, is how they drew that after Ohio State. I don't know. I wish I could tell you how. Really not a good favor for them, but the Ducks had no problem winning that game. They covered easily no problems there. And they were probably sleepwalking through that matchup, and they still had no issues. Purdue, a shell of what it used to be, but still expected more from the Boilermakers in that matchup. But this is where it is. Now you're going back home after you're traveling all the way on a short week to West Lafayette. Now you're going all the way back home. You have an Illinois team coming in. And in the preseason, this wasn't a game that you circled or you looked forward to. It was just like, all right, we got a home game against Illinois. Is this the week that there's a letdown spot from Oregon? Is this the week that they not take their foot off the gas, but maybe aren't as focused as we expect them to be? Now they have a matchup against Michigan coming up. I know the Wolverines have not been very much of a formidable opponent offensively this year, but could Oregon be peeking ahead to that matchup? I think this is a tricky spot for the Ducks. Illinois played Penn State, and I think this will be a good gauge for Ohio State fans in terms of how good of a team is Illinois and also Penn State, because we saw Illinois play Penn State. Pretty even game early on. Illinois goes right down the field, but the Penn State defense shutting down Illinois the rest of the day. And Penn State does have a great defense, and Oregon has a good defense too. But I think offensively is where the differences are between the Ducks and Nittany Lions. I think Oregon's offense can take the top off of you. They've got great playmakers, athletes in space. They have a better quarterback in Dylan Gabriel. So I like Oregon matchup wise than I do Penn State against Illinois. But will they have enough to cover? Because it's a 3-touchdown plus spread in Eugene. I do think I see a path for Illinois to cover in this game. I think Brett Bielema, he's played in big games. He's no stranger to them. He knows Big Ten football. He knows how to scheme things against those spread offenses. He's had to deal with Ohio State for a number of years. So I do expect different looks from Illinois, and I do expect this game to be closer in the first half, create some confusion. But eventually, I don't think it's going to be enough to where Oregon is in danger of losing the game. I do think the Ducks will handle business. They are the number one team in the country, and I think for good reason at this point. Okay. One of the other things that I want to do just before we get into the Saturday 7 picks, where we'll go pick the top 7 games of the week, is for Ohio State. They're coming into this game against Nebraska. And I think this is where it gets interesting for the Buckeyes. There is a day-to-day injury for safety Lathan Ransom. Brian Day just confirming that a few minutes before the show. But Josh Simmons, offensive lineman, he is out in this matchup with an undisclosed knee injury. Timetable, not out for the season, but he's going to be out an extended period of time. And then Will Kazmarek, the tight end, 2 run blocking guys up front for the Buckeyes. That's going to be one to watch. How does Ohio State run the football? Are they still able to be effective? Can Chip Kelly do something to scheme open some rug gaps? What's going to be the Ohio State offense? What will it look like? Will it still be the same? Will they not skip a beat? But the story is going to be the Ohio State defense. How do they respond? Nebraska's offensive line is not that good in comparison to some the Buckeyes have played or will play. This is a game where Ohio State needs to come in and have 3, 4, 5, 6 sacks in the matchup. And it's not to do that just to puff your chest. It's just to get pressure on the quarterback. That's something the Buckeyes have not been able to do. A lot of 4-man pressures. They need to take some different blitz looks, bring 5, bring 6, maybe even 7 on a couple occasions. Ohio State has to give different looks against Nebraska this week defensively, and then again against Penn State in its biggest remaining game of the season. So that's something that I want to watch, is Ohio State against Nebraska in the trenches this week. Let's get into the Saturday 7 picks. We're going to start with Notre Dame and Navy. I did give you my thoughts earlier. I think this is a game where I'm going to take Navy and the points here. The spread's 13.5. I think that's a lot of points, especially with the injuries that Notre Dame's dealing with. It's going to be a shortened game because Navy's going to want to run the football. This is not one where I think it's going to be very high scoring. I will take Navy in the points in this matchup. After that, back out to the Big Ten. I touched on this game as well, Illinois and Oregon. And this is, again, Dylan Gabriel, I think late. He's going to take this game over. They're going to make enough plays where they're going to cover the 21.5-point spread. I think that's one where I can see a path where Illinois covers. Same against Penn State. They should have covered in that game. There were points left on the field for the Illini, but I really do think that this matchup between Oregon and Illinois is going to be one where it's close, it's competitive. 3 quarters, Oregon starts to pull away in the third. Then we get to the fourth quarter, they make enough plays to win and cover. But then Here's another one. SEC matchup here, Alabama and Missouri. Who's going to win this matchup? When I look at these two teams, I think, you know what? Styles make fights here. Alabama's offense has struggled. The defense hasn't been that good. Missouri needs a spot where they can get better, but no one really gets right against Alabama. They got Luther Burden. Maybe they take the top off. They can keep it close. What's third down going to be like? Because again, Jalen Milroe, maybe he's a little banged up. A lot of physical matchups for him. Then Brady Cook is now out or doubtful. I'm going to take Alabama. I had Missouri before the Brady Cook news. I am now going to flip that for Alabama. And this is why. I don't think Missouri offensively is going to be able to do enough to compete late with Alabama. I think the Tide have more playmakers. They have top end potential. Missouri does not have. And then I think defensively, this is a game where they need to settle in and play well. And I think that's what they're going to do. So give me Alabama to cover the 13.5-point spread in this matchup. I think this is a big win for the Tide. It's a morale win. And I think this is going to help them as they go into the open date before a big matchup against LSU in Baton Rouge. A must-win game for the Tide if they wish to go to the college football playoff. Next game is going to be Texas Vanderbilt. This is one that's going to be played in Nashville. This is a really tricky spot for Texas. They're going in to play Diego Pavia. We saw the blueprint of what to do to win a big game. Vanderbilt wants to run the football, and that's what they did. Can they run the football, though, on Texas? No one's really been able to do it effectively yet this year. Can Vanderbilt do it? Quinn Ewers has to take care of the football. Texas has to take care of the football. They got to be able to run the football, exploit those wide receivers. Ryan Wingo, we'll see what happens for the Longhorns. I actually think that this game, small hangover for Texas. Vanderbilt keeps it competitive. I think Texas wins, but Vanderbilt will cover that 18.5 points. Now we'll go to Penn State, Wisconsin. This is a game that I circled in the preseason. I said, you know what? Penn State could get caught looking ahead here to Ohio State next week. It's going to be a massive matchup in State College, but they got to go to Camp Randall first. Luke Fickell going to have the boys ready. I think at night it's really difficult to play in Camp Randall. You got jump around going into the fourth quarter. Wisconsin's been able to run the football really well this year. They're playing excellent defense. Penn State, not much offensively that they do. That surprises you. But what I will say with the Nittany Lions is I think defensively they're going to be able to slow down Wisconsin and not totally make them one-dimensional, but I do think there will be an aspect where Wisconsin can't run the football at times, and I just don't trust that passing attack to pull the upset completely. I'm going to change this from the preseason, so I'm going to go now with Penn State -6.5. I'm going to take Penn State to win and cover on the road and be all business-like heading into the Buckeyes next week. Now we've got the battle of Michigan. Michigan State, Michigan. Not really sure who to pick. This is a low-confidence game for me in this one. Michigan's really struggled this year to throw the football. They almost can't do it. And then you have Aiden Childs. He has been good at times, and he's been really bad at times. What quarterback are we going to get? But Michigan State can throw the football way more than Michigan. So when you're looking at it from that aspect, I say, you know what? I lean Michigan State. Then I think in the trenches, I got to go Michigan here. Is Will Johnson going to play? We'll find out. This has got to be the day Khalil Mullings and Donovan Edwards take over. It's a rivalry game. This is not one Sherrone Moore can lose. Michigan's back is against the wall. They've got Oregon coming in next week. They want to not only salvage their season, but maybe make a push for a better bowl game or on the fringe of the playoff, which sounds absolutely insane. But they have enough games remaining where if they get those marquee wins, they can climb back up. So give me Michigan to win this game on the backs of Mullings and Edwards. The spread in this game, 3.5. I'll take the Wolverines to cover. And then the last game of the week here, I touched on this to open the show, LSU, Texas A&M. Not a game where I trust Connor Wegman. So when I look at this, Garrett Nussmeier and LSU on the road in Kyle Field, it's tough to win there. We saw Notre Dame do it early in the season. The crowd's going to be in it. I think Mike Elko's done a phenomenal job this year with the Aggies. Even with a loss, they're not going to be out of it yet. But I am going to take LSU and Brian Kelly. More big game experience for Kelly. Nussmeier is going to play well, and he's going to win the game with his arm, but he's going to make enough plays with his legs that will put LSU over the top. They will win this game, and they are 2.5-point underdogs. So that means I'll take LSU with the 2.5 points there. I think they win the game outright. But that's tonight's show. I want to thank you for listening. This has been the Week 9 preview episode. A lot of good games on the slate this week. We hope that you will like and subscribe to the show. Leave us a review because it really helps us out. Make sure you're following us on social media at Saturday Cadence on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, or X. And then remember, the Saturday Cadence podcast is the heartbeat of college football. My name is Blake Biscardi. I will see you next time for the Monday show. Enjoy the games of college football this week as we close the month of October. We'll see you next time. God bless.